Welcome in, everyone. It is BTB Analytics. We are here for NFL kickoff week one. There is so much to break down. The anticipation has never been higher. It's insane. We got a lot of data to get into, a lot of matchups as well to get into. Talk about value, talk about the markets. You're not going to want to miss it. Let's go.
Give a damn about a hater when I feel like it. Not today, not today, not today, not tomorrow. Get out my way, please. I'm trying to get paid. Not today, not today.
Seth, Steve, it is great to be back, boys.
It really is.
For my money, there NFL absolutely demolishes in terms of the anticipation leading up to the season, and like the emotional payoff of when it finally kicks off. It like crushes every other major league, in my opinion. So it's here. We're ready for it. There's a lot going on. We're going to talk about several key matchups heading into this weekend. Talk about what our model is identifying and seeing as far as value, and kind of give you some of our other thoughts in terms of the league and maybe some angles and what the hell else. Who knows? Whatever comes up. So let's jump in, shall we? Let's pull up our good old handy dandy matchup map efficiency landscape here. So it's been a while, boys, but we're back here. So I want to just start maybe with one angle or one narrative maybe that each of you guys think we should be keeping an eye on for at least maybe the first half of the season or shoot, the whole entire season. I'll go first. My thing to look out for, just to see how things change, not necessarily how it impacts teams on this graph here, but the new kickoff rule, and what that ultimately means for teams in terms of their aggressiveness later on in drives. How do teams start thinking about going for it on fourth down now more, or kicking short field goals because of the, theoretical shorter field that they're going to have, or both teams might have. And then, how that from a fantasy perspective too, kind of impacts kicker props this season. Over under field goals made. Our kicker's going to be less utilized unless you have a really efficient and really kick-ass kicker. So I don't know. Those are things I'm kind of thinking of.
Over under markets too, right? I mean,
yeah,
right. Theoretically, more scoring in general.
I think so too. So that's like a first order kind of arbitrage angle, right? Like it's the total, right? That's like the obvious one,
So you think higher? You think the totals should be inflated?
I think probably slightly. To what extent, I'm not sure. That'll probably normalize and figure itself out as the season progresses, but would not be shocked to see, first quarter of the season, we're seeing a kind of a outsized sample of overs hitting. But that's just me.
Overs.
Yeah. What do you guys think? So Seth, what about you, man? What's one thing that's piqued your interest going into the season?
There's a lot. I mean, we've talked about it in the season futures. The thing that's piqued my interest is the Eagles and the Jets. Like, all of the analytical numbers say these teams are going to be shit, and all of the sharp and like anecdotal sentiment is on that these teams are going to be really good. And I'm really excited to see which one is which. And I'm really excited to see what's going to happen with the Chiefs. I think this is a team we're going to talk about it, and we've talked about in the past. 2 years ago, one with a lot of offense, and that's what we've known Patrick Mahomes to be. And then last year, we saw Patrick Mahomes do what he does in the playoffs, but they won most of their games via defense. And I would argue even in the playoffs. So what are we going to get out of year 3? Like, they got the rabbit in the hat. Can they do it again with a whole different way, or do they go back to offense? Do they lean on their defense? So that's probably one of the things I'm curious to see the most.
Yeah, and I'll tell you, for me, I have a couple of thoughts here. One, going back to your penalties, I'm not entirely sure if the over is going to be the thing. I'm curious to see how the too many men in the backfield penalties wrap up. We saw a lot of that in the preseason, trying to give the defense a more of a fighting chance than the offense. But then we haven't seen, at least I haven't seen any of this, the whole hip drop tackle rule. I didn't see that called once. I haven't been watching every preseason game, to be fair, but that would go back to the defense. So to your point, Kev, could be an over. So I'm probably going to wait off that and see how that plays out, but definitely some angles there. And then we're going to talk about a little bit the Niners. I'm definitely curious to see how this is going to turn out. I know they've got Trent Williams signed and Ayuk signed, but I'm gonna talk a little bit about that later on, about why I have a little bit of concern there. And then finally, I'm looking to see, can we bring back the pass funnel angle this year? We talked a lot about that last year. For those of you who may be new, but kind of looking at some teams that are that you can situate yourself on for player props, DFS strategies, etc. And we'll hop into that as well. But I'm excited football's back.
For sure. 100%. Could not agree more. So I want to see how week 1 plays out a little bit before I maybe go into this a little more in depth. But because it's not like a really sexy pick necessarily, but I think one of the more interesting teams for me going into this season is actually going to be the Tennessee Titans. They're not really talked about all that much, national perspective. But what I'm fascinated by is who they hired as their coach, Brian Callahan, coming over from Cincinnati, where he did some relatively impressive things with that offense, with Joe Burrow, having been out for 10 games or whatever it was last season. The Bengals were number 2, second in the league last year in pass rate over expected. So they were generally more aggressive in how often and situationally when they threw the ball. Brian Callahan is also a ball knower. Okay. He's talking about conferences, like the use and how he thinks about EPA and analytics and all these different things. So people are, the stat nerds basically are geeking out about him. So I think there is some interesting angles to be had, particularly like on Will Levis, and maybe some of the skill players, just because of how theoretically aggressive they're going to be, the division that they're in. They're going to have to keep up with the Texans, keep up with the Jags, theoretically. They got
keep up with the Colts.
Keep up. Yeah, sure. Why not?
A lot of Colts love out there.
Yeah. So a lot of uncertainty with that team, but I got my eyes on a couple of early season angles with them. So neither here nor there, but I will report back after what we see when week 1. We'll see what happens. But hey, shall we get into some matchups? We got a lot of marquee ones for week 1. Okay?
Let's do it.
And why we don't got to go any further than kickoff Thursday night football, baby. Chiefs and the Ravens here. So solid, absolutely solid matchup here. So from what our numbers say, we basically put this at a pick 'em. This opened at 3, and not that I saw, correct me if I'm wrong if you saw something different, but not a ton of movement. Been hanging around that 2.5, 3 pretty much all since open, basically. So Steve, want to bring you in here, man. First of all, what a way to kick off the season, right? And then secondly, what are we getting, baby? What are we getting with these teams, and who do you think comes out?
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be interesting because continuity is going to be the key, right? I mean, obviously, these are 2 AFC champion caliber teams going into last year. We saw how that played out. But you look at the Ravens right now, when we talk about efficiency, we always talk about EPA, or expected points added, and we break that down from rushing to offense. And the Ravens were number 3 EPA per rush in the league last year. Now, J.K. Dobbins is gone, Gus Edwards is gone. From the receiver standpoint, you got Odell's gone as well. So what does that look like? Now, of course, Baltimore's got Derrick Henry, right? And what is Derrick Henry going to do this year? I'm really excited to see that. But my biggest question mark for Baltimore is going to be that O-line. Right. So Baltimore lost 3 offensive linemen. And so I'm just really kind of curious to see, can they continue to protect that O-line? Can they make rushing lanes for Lamar? Can they protect Lamar first and foremost? Can they make rushing lanes for Derrick Henry? And can they keep that offense going? We know Lamar has some injury issues last year, but really kind of the last couple of years. Tyler Huntley's gone now. They got Josh Johnson as a backup. So I think from that standpoint, my biggest question mark for Baltimore is going to be the explosive offense. On the defensive side of the ball, they've lost some pieces as well. But quite frankly, I think they're going to be fine. I know Davian Clowney, no Ronald Darby, no Geno Stone, but I'm not too concerned there. From the Chiefs standpoint, I mean, listen, sky is blue, water is wet, and the Chiefs offense is going to win games for them. We didn't see that much last year, right? But we talk about how their defense really carried them. Chris Jones is back. I really don't have a lot of concerns outside of what's their wide receiver core going to do, right? So Rashee Rice, we kind of hear that he's not going to be suspended until probably 2025. So he came on last year. He should be there. Marquise Brown's not going to play week 1. So there may be a little bit concerned there. Travis Kelce's 35, but I doubt this team so many times, and yet they continue to prove me wrong. So I've been a little hurt here, but I do like the model. What they're saying here, to me, it's a pick 'em. See slight edge on Ravens with points, but I'm just going to enjoy the game as a football fan.
I got a question for you guys. Are the Ravens 7.5 points worse than they were last year?
No.
No, they're not.
You would think not. Yeah.
I don't. You tell me.
Yeah.
There's no way. There's no
Yeah.
way the Ravens got 7.5 points worse because everyone's talking about this offensive line move. They actually lost 2 offensive linemen, or they lost 3, but they got 1 in free agency. So I'm not as concerned. And there's no way the highest rated DVOA offense of all time, the Ravens last year, is 7.5 points worse than they were last year. This line closed Chiefs plus 4.5 last year in the playoffs, and now we're sitting at plus 3 Ravens. That's a 7.5 point move. That is insanity. That is insanity. I don't know what's going on with the market. To your point, Kevin, I saw that depending on what market maker you looked at, it looks like it opened at 2.5, and then to your point, it's kind of been moving back and forth between 2.5 and 3. But as of right now, is sitting at the 3, which I think is interesting. We're talking about Kansas City, who was the 10th overall defense last year and 8th overall offense. So still a very good offense. We were typically used to thinking of the Chiefs as the number 1 offense, but they took a little bit of regression there. But we're talking about Baltimore as a 2nd overall defense and the 6th overall offense. So I mean, this is a really good team. Both these teams are really good. Obviously, Kansas City won the Super Bowl. The thing there with the defense on Baltimore losing their offensive coordinator, I think is probably a reason that you're seeing some of the market buy Kansas City here. But the thing that's intriguing about that on, the yin and yang here is you're getting 2nd year with Munkanen in the offensive coordinator. So do you get, do you take a little bit of a step backward defensively, but do you take a bit of a step forward offensively? That's something I'm really wanting to see in week 1 here. And I think I agree with you, Steve. I think this is going to be a good game. If you have to bet this, I think you unfortunately have to take the 3. Because again, you ask yourself that question: are the Baltimore Ravens 7.5 points worse than they were 6 months ago? If your answer is no, you have to take the plus 3. If your answer is yes, I think you're crazy. But then I can understand the logic of you wanting to bet the Chiefs. But if you think that answer is no, I think you have to take the points here.
Yeah. Well, okay. Let me ask something though. So not just are the Ravens 7.5 points worse, but could the Ravens be 4 points worse or 3.5 points worse, but the Chiefs 3.5 or 4 points better, right? Because you look at this, I guess for me, the question mark I have here is, so again, we go back to the defensive side of the ball. I think that's the biggest question. Jadeveon Clowney, Rock Yassin, Ronald Darby, Geno Stone. Like, there's a lot of pieces are gone. Like, yeah, you still got Roquan Smith. You still got some of those safeties. That's cool. But for me, what I'm concerned about is, who did the Chiefs have last year, right? Like, especially the first half of the year, right? We talk about Kadarius Toney being absolute ass all year long. Rashee Rice didn't really come on until the end of the year. Travis Kelce had a down year per his standards. But now you have Xavier Worthy. Now he's a draft pick. Who knows how he's going to turn out? Marquise Brown, again, he won't be playing in this game, so you can't say too much there. But I think you have better receivers or better receiving core for Pat Mahomes. And there's that unknown of, could we have a resurgence to a 2022 offense? Now, that's just my personal question. I'm legitimately throwing that out there.
Yeah.
Can you buy a moderate decrease and increase in both teams to get to 7?
Yeah, it's a fair point. But I think for me, the touting that's going on is we're talking about Baltimore and all of the pieces they lost on defense. Kansas City lost a bunch of pieces on defense as well. So
L'Jarius Sneed, Willie Gay,
do a bunch of these, do both of these defenses take a step back? And we don't really have a whole lot of reason to think that either of these offenses are going to struggle. And so that's more my larger point. I feel like this is such a huge move from where we were last year. So I'm just perplexed. I definitely agree with you. This doesn't have to be as extreme as I'm making it, but that is an interpretation, right? That is a potential angle. Now, to your point, what are we going to get here? I think all of the fans are hoping we're getting a shootout. And I would say, as of right now, that would be what I would be looking at. And so if you're going to get in a shootout, field goal, you're at least pushing at the 3.
Coin flip game, one of many. I think the largest spread week 1 is 8, and that's in the Cincinnati and Patriots. And rapidly moving. Yeah, Jamar Chase. Damn it! All right, Thursday night ends. We don't gotta wait long for the next game, baby. What are they calling this? The first Friday game, I believe.
Yeah.
Packers and the Eagles down in Brazil, baby. interesting choice considering there's been a lot of like weird noise about how dangerous basically Brazil is to have a game. So nonetheless, we got another good one right after the opener here. I think is going to be fascinating here. So Packers and Eagles again. Our number is -1 in favor of the Packers. Actually, this the current spread is 2.5. This open at about 1.5. So no edge either side here. But yeah, Seth, let me get your take on this game from one particular point of perspective. What do you think? What are you expecting offensively? Like a similar fireworks type show? Because as much as Steve wanted to hate last season, Jordan Love, top 10, baby.
Hate.
And now the Eagles, one of our kind of value plays as far as, Super Bowl futures bets go, they have Kellen Moore, and he's got his reputation precedes him a little bit. People are expecting a sizable increase in efficiency from what the Eagles put on film last year. So what do you think offensively you're going to get with these two teams?
Yeah, it's a great question. So Philadelphia was the 5th overall EPA ranked offense. Green Bay was the 9th overall EPA ranked offense. Philly was the 30th overall EPA ranked defense, and Green Bay a little bit better at 24th. So I think that this can be a shootout. I would be really curious to see, and really what this bet in my mind is what are you going to get with Jordan Love? Something we saw that's really interesting in the data was this like switch that got flipped around week 9 for Jordan Love. We observed this literal switch. It was almost as if he was like a different quarterback post week 9. And are you going to get that efficiency? We saw him go in and win a playoff game. They almost beat San Francisco, and we were getting high levels of efficiency from that offense. But if you look back earlier in the season, we weren't getting that type of play out of Jordan Love. So I don't know what happened, what clicked. Is it going to proceed into this season? I think if you're a Green Bay Packers fan, I think you're hoping that's the case. And on paper, they have the tools here. The one question I have for you guys is Kellen Moore the Grim Reaper? Like, is he your last shot? And he just knocking on your door and you're like, hey, can I be the OC right before you get fired? We're starting to see a trend here. He's the one that got fired in Dallas, but obviously we know how that story went. We saw what happened. The Chargers is going to be a trend here with Philadelphia. We've talked about it over and over, and I'm going to keep, beating the drum here because I'm just so confused. A lot of the professional sharp community is super high on Philadelphia. Most of the analytics are saying Philly is probably going to struggle. And I don't know. So I don't know. Is Kellen Moore the savior or the antichrist? I'm not sure.
Yeah, good question. For my 2 cents, I'll give it to you, is that if you juxtapose it or compare his savior worthiness against just what they did last year, who they were last year, one thing that I think is another angle to keep an eye on especially for people who are fantasy inclined, is Kellen Moore's like use of pre-snap motion. Eagles dead last in the league last year, 26% pre-snap motion. Okay. Kellen Moore's offense is historically pretty high. LA Chargers last year were number 7 overall, and he's consistently ranked top 6 or 7 everywhere he's been. And this might have contributed to some extent. I don't know how much of the Eagles' struggles last year. They were not trying to hide anything that they were doing or trying to create some confusion pre-snap. They thought they could just line up and beat you. And that unfortunately turned out not to be the case for one reason or the other, right? So if he can implement or introduce some of that, I want to call it like smoke and mirrors type stuff, but Mike McDaniel-esque, and get guys out of position pre-snap, and then that opens the field up. I think, to answer your question directly, I think he's more of a savior than a Grim Reaper here in this case.
But this is my problem. I don't disagree with anything you just said, but Philadelphia was the 5th overall offense last year. Their issue wasn't on offense necessarily. It was on defense. They were getting torched on pretty much any middle of the field route. It's hard to win games. And we saw that Tampa Bay went into Philadelphia, I'm pretty sure, and beat them. I mean, that's an insane thing to say. And, look, I don't know which way or the other. I just don't know if Kellen Moore is the issue. Now, I know the Eagles made a lot of changes in free agency on defense, so maybe they have addressed what they need. But I don't know. If you're betting this game, you are literally betting that, and you're betting the Packers. You're betting you're getting the Jordan Love that you saw in the back half of the season. I don't know how certain you can be of that, but that's what the bet is, in my opinion.
Yeah, and then for me, like I still have a hard time conceptualizing this. And yeah, I'm a Bears fan, and yeah, I definitely hate the Packers, so maybe that's part of it. But I'm looking at this line, and it's definitely coming back down. But you're looking at, like you said, stuff that it's really strength on weakness for both teams. You're looking at the Eagles defense, and particularly their pass defense, right? So they were fifth from the bottom, so 27th in pass EPA on defense in terms of the efficiencies to gain or allowed there. So that to me is very concerning if Jordan Love can go through and kind of light it up with this very young core here that we've seen the Green Bay do last year. But then also, what are we getting on the offensive side of the ball? I mean, we saw the Eagles just absolutely collapse last year. And quite frankly, I think to me, that's the most concerning part, because I can't put my finger on what the hell happened on that back half of the year. Right now, we always
100%.
talked about the schedule going in from year to year and kind of how variance works with those close games we saw 2 years ago versus last year. And maybe, but that doesn't explain how this team can have an absolute collapse. I think it was against the Giants, and then just fizzle their way out of the playoffs. So there's a lot of unknowns. And if you're getting any semblance of that Eagles team you got last year, then yeah, I get the Packer love. Otherwise, this to me seems like a very coin flip game again. Now, I will say the one thing I am curious about is, what is that offense going to look like with Saquon, baby? Are we just not going to, we're going to ignore, we're going to baby Barkley? But other than that, to me, this is a stay away game. I'm going to stay away from this game as much as they're telling the athletes to stay away from the streets in Brazil. So.
Yeah, that's fair. One thing I do want to point out here from a market standpoint: opened at 1, got all the way up to 2.5, and we're seeing today the 2.5 get bought down back down to 2. So we're seeing at this point in the market Green Bay money come in at 2.5. So for all of you, wanting to kind of chase or get an understanding, sitting and hitting that resistance and seeing a ceiling and getting bought down is some good data here. The market is telling us, yeah, 2.5 is too many. It's just too much. Now we'll see what happens tomorrow. But I mean, this market's a bit more mature than all the Sunday games, because again, a Friday kickoff. So that's a pretty important move that you're not seeing it stay at 2.5. You're seeing it get bought back down. So another reason to be a Green Bay, backer. Gun to my head, you got to. I think unfortunately I got to take a square bet, and I think I have to chase that steam and bet a 2.5 if I can get it, and maybe even take a 2. I forget. We make Green Bay. I think we make Green Bay favored. We make them favored just by a point. So I unfortunately I'm uncomfortable. I guess I'm more comfortable backing hopefully a good Jordan Love than I'm willing to fade an Eagles team that I agree, Steve. I don't know what the hell happened.
Yeah. Okay. Fair. And from one game with some interesting line movement to another. So this one, the Texans and the Colts. Let's talk about this matchup next, because this is also one that has been on the move. There's been a lot of action, generally speaking, but the market is basically buying the Texans here. This opened at -1.5. Currently is at now -3. And I don't know if either of you guys have seen it poke through the 3 yet. But
when I made these, I looked for that and I didn't see that.
Okay.
And then I did see at one market maker, it is getting bought back to 2.5. So yeah, I mean, but big move.
Yeah, big move for sure. So what do you think? What do you guys think the market is picking up on here? Is it just the uncertainty maybe surrounding one of these teams, the Colts in particular, with Anthony Richardson coming back and him and his 17 starts since high school? Like what is the issue here?
Well, I think kind of uncertainty around both teams, right? I mean, so what you just said is true,
Okay.
right? Obviously, Anthony Richardson coming back, off that season in the injury last year. What does this Colts team look like? But also the Texans, right? I mean, yeah, the Texans, we saw what CJ Stroud did last year. We talk about our QB EPAs and volatility, and CJ Stroud was where you want to be in this sort of quadrant of elite for most of the season, doing good things that a quarterback, especially a young quarterback, should do. And then you add the Joe Mixons, you add the Stephon Diggs, you get the Tank Dales and Nico Collins back from injury with an O-line that was expected to do nothing last year, now should be at least better, right? So I think you're getting a lot of projection on this is a team that people are talking about can win a Super Bowl. And so what does that look like in terms of the jump here? Personally, I don't know. You look at this EPA on the offensive side, you see the Texans here, -1.411. That's a number that surprises me. That doesn't really pass the eye test, but that's why we have the data, right? So I think what you're seeing is a team that's expected to jump forward in a year where you're very concerned about sophomore slumps of quarterbacks. Now, I'm not saying one way or the other what's going to happen, but to me, there's just a lot of uncertainty. If CJ Stroud was a year 3, year 4 quarterback, and you gave him these tools, I would feel a lot more confident in you're seeing what you're getting. But I just see a lot of uncertainty on both ends. But so tell me, am I kind of way off? You see these data way better than I do.
Yeah, no, I don't. I don't think you're way off. The only thing I would say there is you said sophomore slump for Anthony Richardson. It's still a freshman in my mind. Like 4 starts. Like this is unfortunately. I wrote here in my notes. I have to buy the hype and sell the inexperience. Like I don't know. This move is a lot to me, and I think maybe the other thing that's sitting in bettors' minds and the market's mind is remember the last time these teams played, Houston went into Indy and beat the shit out of them for a playoff berth, and so. That's got to play a role here, but we got, this is a different season. You were playing Gardner Minshew at that point, and I'm not sure if that's better or worse, to be honest, which makes this even more perplexing. But the Colts went out in free agency, got a ton of defensive parts, and I think that's in directly to be thinking about how do we defend CJ Stroud, who we're going to have to play twice a year. So I'm interested to see what that looks like. But to your point, his kind of brilliance is he gets the ball out fast and they scheme up things for him to get the ball out fast. So they've kind of band-aided their way through a bad offensive line. So making some changes there, does that make them take a step forward? I don't know. 3 for a week 1 divisional matchup is a lot. It's a lot if you're laying the 3. I think I don't know how to bet this. We don't show value one way or the other.
Yeah.
I'm not chasing this one way or the other. I can convince myself of both sides on this. The sophomore slump, I think, is a really big concern for me. You can see the actual measured EPA, which means that they saw some positive variance, right? Things went in their way that maybe shouldn't have. They got a little bit of luck. Now, that doesn't mean it doesn't happen again. It doesn't also mean that they now have the roster that's caught up to the eye test, like you're saying, Steve. So do they not actually miss a beat and they're actually really, really efficient and a really good team? I think you just got to measure that. But look, I get it. You want to have action. If you're really about it and you just degen out, I think you have to take +3. You just do, in my mind. Like at home, Colts at home, week 1, Anthony Richardson. You don't know what you're buying, but you just gotta hope that you're buying somebody that isn't going to get hurt.
And the cherry on top, if anyone out there is a trendy who likes to bet trends, Colts.
Oh yeah. Let's hear it.
Colts have not won season opener past 10 seasons. 9-1.
They haven't.
So, have not won a season opener.
At home, I assume.
Have not won a season opener, period, last 10 years. Yeah.
He got hurt. Anthony Richardson got hurt in the Jags game week 1 last year in the fourth quarter. He got taken out.
I'm giving the people what they want, the trends, baby. Okay.
No, I'm just saying, like, do that trend. Like he literally got injured.
Yeah, I hear you. I know. So, yeah, I agree with you. I think the uncertainty here on both sides is kind of the name of the game, which is why we're not showing any value on it. So we're staying away from a betting perspective, at least officially. So,
I mean,
gives me a little bit of
market's giving you some info. They're buying the 3, so they're telling you it's too much. They're just telling you it's too good of a deal, so to speak.
Yeah, that's fair point, but we're staying away officially. So, all right, how about we move to the afternoon games? Then all of a sudden we got another one with probably a lot of offensive fireworks, methinks. Detroit Lions at the Rams at Detroit this time. So this one has not moved at all in terms of the market. At all. This opened at 3.5 and is still sitting there. There hasn't even been any movement in terms of the juice or the vig. Like it's been -3.5, 110 since the start.
It's price.
So yeah, this one is interesting to me, guys. Again, a situation where our numbers don't show any value on either side here, but I think you have some. Speaking of uncertainty, what about the Rams and all the Puka Nacua seems to be on the mend. Cooper Kupp had his issues. Matthew Stafford, another year older. Aaron Donald. So I'm not really sure what I'm getting with this LA team coming into this season. What do you guys think?
Yeah, I think that's true. I like, are these two ships passing in the night? They've swapped quarterbacks. One of them, one of them is kind of, they just won a Super Bowl. The other one's trying to win a Super Bowl. They're going kind of all in as much as they can by drafting defensive pieces. The Rams are losing key defensive pieces. I feel like they are two ships or two things going in the opposite direction. And for me, it's now or never for the Lions. We've seen them take big steps forward, and last year they got the closest they've gotten so far. And based off of all their free agency moves and their draft, they're basically saying it's now. Now's the time, and they have the pieces on offense for sure. This is the overall seventh ranked EPA offense, but LA's the 10th overall ranked EPA offense. Now the difference is Detroit is the 19th and LA was the 20th. And I won't be surprised here if, Detroit gets a lot better and LA gets a lot worse. And I think until you see that, though, it's hard to bet this. But I get if you're betting on like hype or, trajectory. I think you kind of got to go with the Lions and hope that this is their year.
Yeah, no notes. No notes. I think that's absolutely spot on, and what you're seeing here. And again, kind of just going back to the numbers that we see here. We talk so much about why EPA is such a better predictor or a better understanding of efficiency than just yards per play or points per game, right? Which the Lions definitely lit the scoreboard up with that, and you saw the Rams do it as well. But you look at this offensive defensive, Lions are almost double, right, than what the Rams and with similar defenses. So for me, like, this is one of the ones where I think it's priced pretty accurately. The market pretty much agrees, right? You haven't seen much movement on that, but I'm buying what you're selling, Seth. Yeah, and then as a fan, this is a Lions team that really didn't have to do too much more. Like, they've got their core, they've got their pieces, they've got their style, their belief, they've got their coach. Like, what more do you want? This is a hungry team that feels like they're here for destiny. And I'm not trying to get too much into like the whole, the touting and the emotional stuff of this, but this is a team that you believe in. And that's a Bears fan. This is a team I believe in. So I got nothing to add.
The only other caveat I was thinking about with this is, like, do you almost have to ride with Matt Stafford until like the wheels fall off? Because he covers, the dude covers games, like, and we've won a lot of money by him just overperforming in spot after spot after spot. And the other thing too is the classic fickle public. Everybody and their mother was all over LA in this playoff game when the Rams went to Detroit. And then now all of a sudden, I haven't heard a peep. So, I mean, Aaron Donald spooked you. I'm a little confused on that. It's just the consistency here. We're talking only, 5 months ago. You couldn't get this out of people's minds that there was so much value on LA. Now, nothing.
I was looking at the total real quick too. So the spread hasn't moved an iota, and neither has the total. It's just 51, 50 and a half, just no budging whatsoever. So
shout out.
Sheesh. Yeah, it should be another. Effectively another coin flip game. But this one should be good for sure as well. So, although not a primetime one here, let's wrap up with one of the primetimes. Sunday. This is Sunday Night Football, right? Jets and Niners, or is it Monday night?
Monday night, baby.
Okay, my bad. Jets, Niners, Monday Night Football. The return of A-Rod himself, Aaron Rodgers. So this one is interesting, boys, because this is one of the games where our model has identified some value. Yeah, the market, unfortunately, has not really agreed with us on it, and we talked about it in our season preview, kind of in a weird qualitative way, high on the Jets in terms of like future long bets and value, but week one we're fading them, and so it feels kind of weird just from the jump. But I don't know what the hell is going to happen with this team with Aaron Rodgers. He could be the A-Rod of old and just be like light the league on fire, comeback player of the year, maybe dark horse MVP status, or he looks washed and he just looks pathetic, and it's going to be sad to see. I think both outcomes are not all that far apart from each other in terms of probability. So, Steph, I don't know. That's for me. And I don't know what to expect from that side. And what do you think?
I think it's a fair point. I got a stat for you that relates to that. So, what are you going to get out of Aaron Rodgers? And I think that not only sums up this game, but pretty much the whole season. And I saw something interesting looking at our data. Aaron Rodgers' career EPA per game is 8.7 points. But if we look at Aaron Rodgers' EPA per game in the last 10 games, 3.3 points. So it's a significant step backwards in the last 10 games. Now, obviously, one of those games he tore his Achilles. But looking, past that, when he was at Green Bay with that season without Devontae, there was a big drop off there. So what are you going to see in him coming off the Achilles? What are you going to see with his age? Now, the data kind of there is a little bit interesting. If you go look back for older quarterbacks returning from these major injuries, they've actually all done fairly well. Obviously, Tom Brady, I think Warren Moon had a season in there, but I don't know. For me, I have to be very transparent. This bet makes me feel very sick. I understand why the market is buying the Jets. Defensively, we're talking a team that has been in top DVOA defense 2 years in a row, and they've basically got better defensively this year. And Purdy kind of struggled against really good defenses. He struggled against the Browns. He struggled kind of against, if you want to call Cincinnati early in the season last year, good defense. But then he blew out the Dallas Cowboys. So it's like, you got to pick your spots. But I'm concerned here. Now, I'm less concerned than I was a week ago getting, one of the best tackles, if not the best tackle, and one of the best wide receivers back on the 49ers. So that helps me a little bit. But I can't lie to you. This bet feels gross to me. Now, we've bet it. But I can understand why the market, is buying this.
Yeah, I'm torn here too. For me, the logical side, right? The football thing comes out of me and says Aaron Rodgers is going to be 41 this year. He hasn't played football in almost 2 years, like 2 calendar years, almost going into this. So what are you going to see here? And the decline is exactly what I expect. On the other hand, this Jets team that somehow won 7 games last year, and that was because of their defense, which you pointed out, Seth, is still very much elite and arguably even better coming in this year. And then on the flip side, look at the 49ers. We talk about, again, this EPA and the volatility. Like Brock Purdy was the EPA GOAT for most of last year, literally in a league of his own in terms of how efficient this guy was. Then Debo got hurt. Then they had that sort of 3-game stretch where they were losing. He wasn't really playing as well. But to your point about good defenses, the one question mark, and it's actually something that may seem counterintuitive, the one question mark for me is the O-line. Now, obviously, besides Trent Williams, who is, arguably the best O-lineman in football, you got John Feliciano for the 49ers, who's on IR, and he's probably their second best lineman. You've got Jake Brindle, Aaron Banks, Colton McCovitz. That's kind of wrapping up that line. And if you look at PFF grades, they're all at best average, mostly below average. And so what does that look like for an explosive play opportunity? We talk about their explosiveness. We talk about their echo rate, getting drives down to the 40, success rates, things like that. What does that look like against a very vaunted and elite Jets defense? I don't know, right? And so it's for me, like that's where I can kind of see the angle of backing the Jets, because really you're backing the Jets defense, and then you're trusting Aaron Rodgers to be a game manager quarterback better than Zach Wilson, which I'll take that 10 out of 10 times. So, this is something that it's a good game. I'm glad we have the bet. I do feel pretty comfortable with the Niners, even though the market, does kind of disagree with us, which is probably me being way too cocky. But I think that you can see both sides here, and I'm really excited to see what the upside is going to be for both these teams. But I am nervous about the Niners moving forward, depending on how this O-line holds up and what that looks like with Purdy going forward. Now, I will say real quick, one last point: Josh Dobbs back up in case Purdy gets hurt. Dude, I know it's preseason, but man, that dude lit it up. Oh my God.
He will be the savior, the second coming for about 3.5 quarters.
Well, hopefully we never see him. Hopefully he's never coming on that.
Exactly.
Oh, for sure.
But also CMC's potentially injured. Like, man, I just feel like so many headwinds for this bet.
And not to mention Ricky Purcell, which bang. Yeah.
Mini
well,
men.
At least first 4 games, right? They're saying
at
least. So.
Yep. It's going to be very, very fascinating. I think that's going to be a good nightcap or I guess sort of weekend wrap up to the week 1. So I'm glad
only if they win, only if they cover.
Yeah. Can I just say though, Aaron Rodgers' Achilles has a chance to do the funniest thing ever.
Repeat
Pop on
oh, dang. On Monday Night Football,
yeah,
week
exactly.
1.
That's what I'm saying.
Just
Sheesh.
wow, unreal. All right, that does it in terms of our marquee matchups that we wanted to cover for week 1 here. We do, however, want to go over what our model's saying and kind of all the plays that we have officially going into week 1 here. So, Seth, if you don't mind, go ahead and gross. Yeah. Oh, already week 1, it's gross. Yeah, we have so many weeks where we're always staring at the card and we're like, fucking gross.
Oh, dude, this one.
But
yeah, so this is it.
Yep, this is it. So confirm for the good people the numbers that we got and where we're at with everything.
Yeah. So first and foremost, we were actually able to get Patriots plus 9.5. We have a Saints minus 4.5, 49ers minus 5.5, Steelers plus 3, and Raiders plus 3.5 minus 105, which is what made it meet the 4% threshold for us to bet it. So those are the 5 that we're going in with. We've seen CLV on Patriots as of right now, and Raiders, negative CLV on Steelers, 49ers, and Saints. Man, the 49ers one, I feel gross, but grosser than that is the Steelers bet. Like, I've gone like in every emotion to that bet. When I first saw it, I was like, oh, so sharp. And then like early movement, the market agreed with us. And then as of late, this is at 3.5, guys. So this is no bueno.
Did they name the starter?
Steelers, yeah, it's Russell.
It is okay,
but they looked horrible, and I mean that generously in preseason. With their offensive line, may have some big issues.
Yeah, it doesn't look good for them. I mean, they probably reluctantly name him the starter. Frankly, like. I mean, shout out to your boy Fields, Steve. I don't know if you got a soft spot in your heart for Fields or not, but bro.
Yeah, I mean, they both looked equal. That offense looked equally horrible with both of them in there. Again, I know it's preseason, but yeah, it was not a good look. And I think the worst thing about this, honestly, forget the data and the market movement, all those things that you really should be looking at if you're trying to be better as a sports bettor. You don't get primetime Kirk. So he's going to come out here slanging.
But it's prime
time,
baby. It's prime time for his Achilles. It's the other Achilles. Look, I mean, I do want to say this: as gross as it is, this is something that I feel like needs to be stated. You have to trust the process here. You put in hundreds, if not thousands, of hours into developing these data, the models, all this back testing. We bet it all last year. Like these weeks happen, guys. And if you're one of the board members, you've been riding with us. Like they can seem gross. I mean, one stands out. Cardinals last year, it was against the Steelers. 10, I think it was a 10.5. Model was like, this is one of the best bets you can make with your life. And we're like, this is disgusting. It makes no sense. Cardinals win. So, I mean, we have, you can't, it's gross. We could go 0-5. We could go 5-0, but you just have to trust the process. Yeah. The process is what you have to put all the work into. And at this point, you do the due diligence, you bet the games, and you trust the process.
It is hard to decouple sometimes.
Yeah, but this one's wild. I'm not gonna lie to you. I hate every single bet on here. The Saints, I'm just so surprised by the Saints bet. I don't really hate that because I'm actually quite high on the Saints, but I'm just confused why the market's wanting to buy Carolina without any data. Like, we don't have any new data. It's just all kind of hope on what they're gonna be. I'm surprised by that.
Yeah. Hey, can I make one request? Just kind of peel the curtain back. So, as we've grown over the last, this is our, season 3 doing this, there's been a lot of stuff behind the scenes, a lot of work you put into it, and really a lot of hiring of other people to kind of help our stuff be more professional with coders, editors, producers, etc. So we have a producer right now. So I want to make a point. Can we get a counter going on for the rest of the season of how many times we say, oh, this bet's fucking gross? Because we have said that so many times last year, and quite frankly, the ones we felt the worst about more often than not were the ones that covered the one we're like, oh, that I love this card. Those are the ones we actually got into trouble. So
yeah, 100%. No, I think it's such a good idea. And that's also important too, of like, that's the reality. Your brain, you tell yourself with ego when you're betting these without data that you know ball, but you lose season after season after season.
For sure.
It's because it's really difficult to see these spots that the data can pick up on and, and show you, hey, no, there's some value in how this game can go.
Yeah.
And a big difference.
Let's pull the card up one more time here too, because I want to know. I want to know if people watching this feel the same way that we do too. So
Okay.
you see the Model 1 card up there again. Oh, there we go. We got it. So I don't know. Let us know what you guys think. We know the matchups. Patriots play the Bengals. Saints against the Panthers. Niners, Jets, Steelers, Falcons, Raiders, and Chargers. So it's not a sexy slate by any stretch of the means, but let us know what you guys think. Do you see some value here that we're not seeing? What are we missing in our own numbers and our own data? Sometimes we get a little what's the word? Selectively blind, I guess, if you will.
Oh, meaning you think that they think that they're like, hell yeah, I love this.
Yeah, someone could look at this and be like, oh hell yeah, I love this.
The market loves the
here's why.
Patriots bet. This is now a 7.5, which is wild.
Yeah.
But I think it's mostly
I don't know how much
Jacoby,
that
but it's weird because like the market sentiment is how bad New England's going to be. So I'm really perplexed because it's like New England's going to be dog shit, horrible offensive line, worst team in the league. Let's buy them 2.5 points from open. Like, okay, is that all Jamar Chase? I don't know. I'm not sure.
Do you guys know who DeMario Douglas is?
No.
Yeah, exactly. That's the problem. He's their leading receiver in a New England squad. That's exactly the problem.
It's fair. Let's go, DeMario.
Shout out. So
We're gonna need a big game on Sunday.
It will, yeah. All right, that will, I think, do it for us, guys. Appreciate you being here with us. Don't forget to like the video if you like the content. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button on the channel as well. Helps us out tremendously. We're going to be doing this every single week for you guys throughout the season, breaking down whatever matchups we find interesting or that there is value on, or both, and then as well as any other angles that we come across. We talked about pass funnels. We talked about some other things at the beginning of this show. We'll be trying to dissect and discuss all of it for you guys to try to make you think about the games better, think about how you're placing your bets, and hopefully we can help you make some smarter bets along the way. That's kind of part of why we're here, boys. So it's been real. Week 1 is here, baby. I can feel it. Oh, it feels so good. Cannot wait to be with you guys until when week 2 kicks off, or when it's about to kick off. So until then, appreciate everyone hanging out. We'll see you next week. Peace.
Take care.